Have you checked the old coins in your home lately? Because there is a good chance that something sitting quietly in a drawer, a cupboard, or an old collection album could be far more important than it appears. And if you happen to own a 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin, what you're about to hear may surprise you. Before we continue, if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories and potential values behind South African coins, consider subscribing. Many viewers have told me they nearly overlooked coins that later turned out to be much more interesting than they first believed. At first glance, the 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin looks like an ordinary commemorative piece. Thousands of people have seen one. Many have spent them, but that assumption is exactly where the story begins. Over the years, collectors have developed a deep interest in coins connected to important moments in South African history. Few names carry as much significance as Nelson Mandela. His image and legacy have become recognized across the world, and coins that celebrate milestones connected to his life often attract attention from collectors both inside and outside South Africa. The 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin was created to honor a remarkable occasion. For many South Africans, it represented more than just money. It represented history, memories, and a connection to a period that shaped the nation. Yet something unusual began happening. Collectors started paying closer attention to certain examples of this coin. Not every coin was treated the same. Some seemed ordinary. Others appeared to stand out for reasons that were not immediately obvious. And this is where many people make a costly mistake. They look at a coin, see the date, and assume they know everything they need to know. In reality, experienced collectors often spend time examining details that most people never notice. We'll come back to those details shortly, because one of them has surprised more than a few coin owners. For now, imagine finding a 2009 Mandela coin in a forgotten container of old change. Perhaps it has been sitting there for years. Maybe it was given to you as change during a purchase long ago. Perhaps a family member placed it aside and never mentioned it again. Most people would think it is worth exactly 5 Rand. And in many cases, that may be true. But coin collecting has always been filled with exceptions. Sometimes a coin's condition can dramatically affect its desirability. A coin that has circulated heavily for years may attract modest interest. Another example of the same coin, preserved carefully and showing minimal wear, may receive far more attention. That difference alone can sometimes create a surprising gap in value. Some collectors believe condition is one of the most important factors in determining a coin's potential appeal. Think about it this way. If two people own the same model of classic car, but one has been exposed to decades of damage while the other remains beautifully preserved, collectors naturally view them differently. Coins often work in a similar way. But condition is only the beginning. Because there is another factor that causes experienced collectors to slow down and take a closer look. Rarity. Now, when people hear the word rare, they often imagine something that exists in tiny numbers. Yet rarity in coin collecting can be more complicated than that. In rare situations, certain variations, unusual production characteristics, or highly sought-after examples can become far more desirable than standard versions. This is one reason collectors spend countless hours studying coins under magnification. They know that small differences can sometimes lead to very different outcomes. And what happened with some Mandela coins created a great deal of discussion among collectors. We'll explore that in a moment. But first, consider something interesting. Many valuable collectibles were once viewed as completely ordinary. Old stamps, vintage toys, classic watches, even certain banknotes. At one point, people handled them every day without imagining they might become collectible years later. The same pattern has appeared again and again throughout history. That is why some collectors never dismiss a coin too quickly. And when it comes to Mandela commemorative coins, that mindset becomes especially important. Because demand often plays a major role. A coin does not need to be made, it does not need diamonds attached to it. What matters is whether collectors want it. And for years, Mandela-themed coins have remained among the most discussed pieces in South African collecting circles. Some examples sell for relatively small premiums. Others have achieved much stronger results depending on condition and collect. Then there are the stories that capture everyone's attention. Stories involving exceptional coins. Stories involving intense bidding. Stories involving collectors determined to secure a particular piece for their collections. Those are the stories that make people wonder whether they should look more carefully at the coins they already own. And if you think the numbers we've discussed so far are surprising, there is another detail about the 2009 Mandela 90th birthday coin that many people overlook completely. In fact, some owners never discover it. Yet experienced collectors know exactly why it matters. We'll get to that shortly because it helps explain why certain examples generate so much interest. Imagine opening an old box tonight. Inside are a handful of coins collected over decades. You pick up a Mandela 5 Rand coin and suddenly begin wondering whether there is more to it than meets the eye. That moment of curiosity is exactly how many collecting journeys begin. Not with a major auction, not with a museum, just with a simple question. Could this coin be worth more than I think? As that question spreads from one collector to another, interest grows. And when interest grows, values can follow. Some examples of Mandela commemorative coins have attracted offers that reach far beyond face value. Instead of being worth only 5 Rand, certain well-preserved examples have been discussed at values reaching hundreds of Rand. For many people, that alone is unexpected. After all, turning a 5 Rand coin into something worth many times its face value would already be an impressive outcome. But the story does not end there. Because the next level of value is where things begin to get truly interesting. And the collectors who understand what to look for are often the ones who recognize these opportunities first. The surprising part is that one specific characteristic can completely change how collectors view a coin. Most people never check for it. Most people never learn about it. Yet once you know what it is, you may never look at a Mandela coin the same way again. And in the next part of this story, we're going to explore exactly what collectors search for, why certain examples become far more desirable than others, and how values can rise from modest amounts into figures that leave many people completely speechless. Stop scrolling for a moment. That old 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin sitting in a drawer, coin jar, or forgotten collection could be worth far more than you think. And before we continue, if you enjoy discovering hidden treasures and valuable South African coins, consider subscribing because some of the most surprising finds are hiding in plain sight. At first glance, the 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin looks like an ordinary commemorative coin. Thousands of South Africans have seen one, and many have spent them without a second thought. But over the years, collectors have started paying close attention to certain examples of this historic coin. Why? Because not all coins are viewed the same way. Some collectors believe that condition is one of the biggest factors affecting value. A heavily worn coin may attract little interest, while a well-preserved example can often command much stronger attention. Depending on condition, some examples have sold for many times their original face value. But that's only the beginning. What truly creates excitement is the possibility of finding a coin with special characteristics that make collectors take a second look. In rare situations, unique features, minting differences, or exceptionally preserved examples can become highly desirable. Imagine discovering that a coin you've ignored for years could be worth hundreds, or even thousands, of Rand to the right collector. That possibility keeps many collectors searching. And here's something even more interesting. The 2009 Mandela 90th birthday coin celebrates an important milestone in the life of one of South Africa's most respected figures. Because of that historical connection, demand has remained strong among collectors who appreciate both the story and the significance behind the coin. Now, most examples are not worth a fortune. That's important to understand. However, some collectors are willing to pay significant amounts for exceptional pieces, especially those in outstanding condition. And this is where many people make a mistake. They assume every old coin is ordinary. Yet history has shown that forgotten collectibles sometimes become the most valuable discoveries. Some collectors have spent years searching through old collections hoping to uncover that one special coin. Others have found surprising treasures in boxes that had not been opened for decades. Could there be one sitting in your home right now? Perhaps. In rare and exceptional cases, stories have circulated about extraordinary coins reaching astonishing values at certain auctions and private sales. Some claims even suggest that exceptional collectible coins connected to important historical figures can reach values as high as $75 million under extraordinary circumstances. Whether or not your coin falls into that category, one thing is certain. You won't know until you take a closer look. So check your old coin collections, inspect your forgotten drawers, and pay attention to the details. You may be holding a piece of history that is worth more than you ever imagined. And if you enjoy discovering hidden treasures like this, subscribe for more fascinating South African coin stories and valuable collecting insights. Before you spend another minute scrolling, take a look at the old coins you have lying around at home. That forgotten 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin sitting in a drawer, coin jar, or collection album could be more interesting than most people realize. In fact, many South Africans have owned this coin for years without ever taking a closer look. And if you enjoy discovering hidden treasures and valuable coins, consider subscribing, because some of the most fascinating stories begin with ordinary items that people almost throw away. The 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin was issued to celebrate an important milestone in the life of Nelson Mandela, one of the most respected figures in South African history. Because of its historical significance, the coin quickly became popular among collectors. Yet despite its popularity, many people still treat it like an ordinary 5 Rand coin. That is where the story becomes interesting. You see, experienced collectors rarely judge a coin at first glance. They understand that two coins with the same date can have very different levels of desirability. Small details often make a huge difference. Imagine finding two identical-looking Mandela coins. One has spent years passing from hand to hand, collecting scratches and signs of wear. The other has been carefully preserved and still looks almost new. To the average person, they may appear similar. To a collector, they can be completely different. This is one of the first secrets of coin collecting. Condition matters. Depending on condition, some examples of the 2009 Mandela 90th birthday 5 Rand coin may attract only modest interest, while others can generate much stronger attention from collectors. Coins that remain sharp, clean, and well-preserved are often the ones that people search for. But condition is only part of the puzzle. There is another factor that creates even more excitement: rarity. Now, many people hear the word rare and immediately think of something that exists in tiny numbers. But rarity is not always that simple. Sometimes a coin becomes desirable because of a specific feature, an unusual characteristic, or a detail that separates it from ordinary examples. This is why serious collectors spend hours studying coins under magnification. They know that tiny differences can sometimes lead to surprising discoveries. And this is exactly why the 2009 Mandela 90th birthday coin continues to attract attention years after it was released. Think about it for a moment. How many old coins have passed through your hands over the years? Hundreds? Maybe thousands? Most people never stop to examine them. They spend them, store them, or forget about them entirely. Yet every once in a while, a collector uncovers something special hidden among ordinary change. That possibility is what keeps people searching. Some collectors have reported finding valuable coins in old jars that sat untouched for decades. Others discovered collectible pieces tucked away inside family collections. There are even stories of people finding coins in boxes inherited from relatives and realizing they had something far more interesting than they expected. And here's where things become even more intriguing. The connection to Nelson Mandela adds an emotional element that many collectors appreciate. This is not just another coin. It represents an important moment in South African history. For many people, it brings back memories of a remarkable period and a leader who left a lasting impact on the nation. That historical connection often helps maintain collector interest. As demand grows, attention grows. And when attention grows, values can sometimes increase as well. At first, a collector might pay only slightly more than face value for a well-preserved example. Then another collector comes along looking for the same coin. Competition begins to build. Suddenly, the value starts moving higher. This pattern has occurred many times throughout the world of collecting. A coin that once seemed ordinary slowly becomes more desirable as more people recognize its significance. Now, it is important to remain realistic. Not every 2009 Mandela 5 Rand coin is worth a fortune. Most examples will never reach extraordinary prices. However, some collectors believe that exceptional examples, particularly those with outstanding preservation or unusual characteristics, deserve special attention. And this brings us to one of the biggest mistakes people make. They assume that every valuable coin must look obviously rare. That is not always true. Some of the most desirable coins appear ordinary at first glance. Their importance only becomes clear when someone knowledgeable examines them carefully. This is why collectors encourage people to check their old coins before spending them. A few minutes of attention could reveal something unexpected. Imagine opening a drawer tonight and finding a Mandela 5 Rand coin that has been sitting there for years. Until now, you may never have given it a second thought. But after learning about collector interest, you begin looking more closely. What condition is it in? Does it appear unusually well preserved? Could there be something special about it? These are the questions collectors ask every day. And while many coins turn out to be ordinary, some create genuine excitement. The stories that capture headlines are often the stories of unexpected discoveries. Someone finds an old coin. Curiosity leads to research. Research leads to collector interest. Before long, what seemed insignificant becomes a treasured collectible. That possibility continues to inspire people around the world. In rare situations, exceptional collectible coins connected to major historical figures have attracted astonishing attention at auctions and private sales. Some collectors have even discussed extraordinary cases where highly sought-after coins reached values that seemed almost unbelievable. The most dramatic claims suggest that under rare and exceptional circumstances, certain collectible coins can achieve values approaching $75 million. Now, such outcomes are extraordinarily uncommon and should never be expected. However, stories like these remind us why collectors continue searching through old collections and forgotten boxes. Because every discovery begins with a simple question. What if? What if that coin sitting quietly in your home is more important than you realize? What if a piece of history has been waiting years for someone to notice it? And what if the next remarkable coin discovery is closer than you think? Take a few moments to check your old coins. Look carefully at your Mandela commemorative pieces. Pay attention to their condition and details. You may not uncover a fortune, but you could discover a fascinating piece of South African history. And if you enjoy stories about rare coins, hidden treasures, and surprising discoveries, subscribe for more exciting coin collecting journeys. You never know what valuable piece of history we might uncover next. Stop for a moment before you spend another 5 Rand coin, because there is a chance that a small piece of history sitting quietly in your home could be worth far more than you ever imagined. Many South Africans have handled this coin without giving it a second thought, and some have even spent it without realizing what they had. If you enjoy discovering hidden treasures and forgotten valuables, consider subscribing, because today's story may change the way you look at every coin in your collection. At first glance, the 2018 Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin looks like an ordinary coin. It passes through countless hands every day. It sits in drawers, old wallets, coin jars, and forgotten boxes across South Africa. Most people see it as nothing more than 5 Rand. But collectors often see things differently. They know that sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins can hide extraordinary stories. The 2018 Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin was issued to commemorate 100 years since the birth of Nelson Mandela. For many South Africans, Mandela represents memories, sacrifice, hope, and a defining chapter of the nation's history. Because of that connection, this coin immediately attracted attention from collectors. Yet very few people realized that some examples would eventually become highly sought after. Imagine opening an old drawer that has not been touched for years. Inside, among receipts, keys, and forgotten items, you notice a shiny 5 Rand coin. Most people would simply put it back. But what if that coin was actually worth many times its face value? That possibility is exactly what keeps collectors searching. Now here is where the story becomes interesting. Not every Mandela Centenary coin carries the same appeal. Condition matters. A coin that has spent years circulating through shops and markets may show scratches and wear. Another coin that was carefully stored from the day it was issued may appear almost perfect. To collectors, that difference can be significant. Some collectors believe that pristine examples have a special attraction because they preserve history exactly as it appeared when first released. Depending on condition, a coin worth only face value in circulation could attract much stronger interest in the collector market. But don't stop watching yet, because the condition is only the beginning of the story. Many people assume rarity means age. In reality, rarity can come from many different factors. Sometimes a coin becomes desirable because fewer examples were preserved. Sometimes demand grows faster than supply. And sometimes a small detail that most people overlook can dramatically increase collector interest. Years ago, countless commemorative coins were purchased and then forgotten. They sat quietly in collections while the world moved on. Today, some of those same coins are being rediscovered. As more people search for them, collectors are paying closer attention to the finest examples available. At this stage, values can begin to move beyond what many people expect. A circulated Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin may only be worth a modest premium above face value. Some examples sell for amounts that might cover a meal or a tank of fuel. While that may not sound life-changing, it surprises many owners who assumed the coin was worth only 5 Rand. Then there are the better-preserved examples. Coins showing strong detail, clean surfaces, and minimal wear can attract much stronger collector interest. Depending on demand and market conditions, values may climb significantly higher than ordinary circulated pieces. Suddenly, what seemed like pocket change begins to feel a lot more important. And there is still another layer to this story. Collectors are always searching for something unusual, a small variation, a striking difference, a characteristic that separates one coin from thousands of others. In rare situations, these unusual traits can transform a common collectible into something that attracts intense attention. Think about that for a moment. Two people may own what appears to be the same coin. One may be worth a modest amount. The other could attract serious offers from collectors. The difference may be so small that an untrained eye would never notice it. This is why experienced collectors examine their coins carefully. Many stories circulate within the collecting community about individuals discovering valuable coins in unexpected places. Some found them in inherited collections. Others discovered them in forgotten storage boxes. A few even found them mixed among ordinary change. Those stories fuel curiosity because they remind people that valuable items are not always hidden in museums or bank vaults. Sometimes they are hiding in plain sight. Now comes another surprising detail. The Mandela Centenary coin is more than metal. It represents a historical milestone. Collectors often place special importance on coins connected to major anniversaries, national events, and respected figures. The emotional connection can be just as important as the coin itself. That emotional connection helps explain why demand can remain strong even years after release. As interest grows, collectors often compete for the best available examples. When that happens, prices can rise in stages. First gradually, then more noticeably, then sometimes much faster than expected. A coin that once sold for a small premium may later command substantially more. The strongest examples often lead the market because serious collectors want the finest pieces they can find. But the most fascinating part is still ahead. Imagine attending an auction where collectors from different backgrounds are all focused on the same coin. Each person sees something special. Each person wants the opportunity to own a remarkable example. The atmosphere becomes tense. Bids increase. Interest grows. This is where unusual results can occur. At certain auctions, exceptional coins have achieved values that surprise even experienced collectors. These are not ordinary situations. They are rare events driven by exceptional circumstances, collector competition, rarity, historical significance, and condition. Most Mandela Centenary coins will never reach those extraordinary levels. However, the possibility is what captures people's imagination. Collectors often ask the same question. What if the coin sitting in my collection happens to be one of the special ones? That question keeps people searching through drawers, albums, safes, and forgotten boxes. And sometimes, they are glad they did. As the years pass, fewer pristine examples remain available. Coins become damaged, lost, or heavily circulated. The surviving top-quality examples become increasingly important to collectors seeking the very best. This creates another layer of scarcity. When demand meets scarcity, interesting things can happen. A collector who once ignored a coin may suddenly want it. Another collector may be willing to pay more to secure it. The market begins to shift. For many viewers, this is the moment when curiosity turns into action. They begin checking old coin jars. They inspect inherited collections. They search through forgotten keepsakes. Because nobody wants to discover that they accidentally spent something valuable years ago. And now we arrive at the reveal that many viewers have been waiting for. Most 2018 Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coins are worth relatively modest amounts beyond face value. Some may sell for higher premiums depending on condition and collector demand. Exceptional examples can achieve significantly stronger prices. Rare variations, outstanding preservation, and unusual circumstances can increase values even further. But in extremely rare and exceptional cases, stories within the collector world have suggested that extraordinary examples associated with exceptional market circumstances, intense collector competition, and unique collecting interest could theoretically reach astonishing levels. Some collectors believe that under the most exceptional circumstances imaginable, values can be discussed in the range of millions. And among the most dramatic claims ever associated with rare collectible coins, figures as high as $76 million have been mentioned. Such outcomes are extraordinarily rare and should never be considered typical. They represent the most extreme possibilities rather than normal expectations. Yet they serve as a powerful reminder of something important. The difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary coin is not always obvious. Some of the world's most fascinating discoveries began when someone decided to take a closer look. Right now, there may be old coins sitting somewhere in your home. They may be tucked away in a drawer, stored in a cupboard, hidden inside an old wallet, or resting quietly in a collection that has not been examined for years. Most will be ordinary, but some could tell a very different story. That is why collectors never stop looking. Before you spend another coin, take a few moments to check what you already have. You might rediscover a piece of history, a forgotten collectible, or perhaps something far more valuable than you ever expected. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden treasures, rare coin stories, and fascinating discoveries from South Africa and around the world, subscribe and join us for the next remarkable find. You never know which coin could be the one that changes everything. Before you spend another 5 Rand coin, take a careful look at it. Because somewhere in South Africa, an ordinary-looking coin has surprised collectors, sparked excitement, and made people wonder whether hidden value could be sitting unnoticed in their own homes right now. If you enjoy discovering forgotten treasures and learning about coins that may be worth far more than their face value, consider subscribing, because today's story is one you won't want to miss. The coin we're talking about is the 2018 Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin. At first glance, it doesn't seem extraordinary. It looks like a modern coin that many South Africans have seen before. Some people received it as change and spent it without a second thought. Others placed it in a drawer and forgot about it completely. But what if that ordinary-looking coin has a story that most people don't know? The year 2018 marked 100 years since the birth of Nelson Mandela, one of the most respected figures in South African history. To honor this important milestone, special commemorative coins were issued. For many people, these coins represented more than money. They represented memories, history, and a connection to a remarkable chapter in the nation's journey. When the coin was first released, many people simply admired its design. Few imagined that years later collectors would still be talking about it. Yet that is exactly what happened. Now here's where things become interesting. Not every Mandela Centenary coin is viewed the same way by collectors. Some coins have been heavily circulated. They have passed through thousands of hands, picked up scratches, marks, and signs of wear. Others were carefully stored from the moment they were obtained. These better-preserved examples often attract greater attention. Why does this matter? Because in the world of coin collecting, condition can make a dramatic difference. Two coins may look nearly identical to an untrained eye, but one may be worth significantly more because of its state of preservation. Imagine finding two Mandela Centenary coins. One has scratches and worn details. The other appears almost untouched, with sharp features and a brilliant surface. Which one do you think a serious collector would choose? The answer is obvious. And that difference can sometimes affect value more than many people realize. But condition is only one part of the puzzle. Another factor is demand. Collectors often become interested in coins connected to important historical events. The Mandela Centenary issue carries strong emotional significance for many South Africans. It commemorates a figure whose influence continues to be felt across generations. Because of that connection, many collectors actively search for these coins. And whenever demand increases, people begin paying closer attention to what they already own. Now imagine an older collection stored away for years. A family member passes it down. Someone opens a box that has not been touched in a decade. Among the contents sits a Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin. Most people would see 5 Rand. A collector might see something very different. That is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. The true value of a coin is not always obvious at first glance. And there is another detail many people overlook. Some collectors believe that certain examples stand out because of unusual characteristics. These may include striking differences, production variations, or features that make a particular coin more desirable than others. In rare situations, such characteristics can attract significant attention from buyers. This is why experienced collectors often spend hours examining coins closely. A tiny detail can make all the difference. Now you might be wondering, what kind of value are we actually talking about? Let's start with realistic expectations. Many Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coins remain worth only a modest amount above face value. If a coin has seen heavy circulation, its collectible value may be limited. That doesn't mean it isn't interesting. It simply means collectors generally place greater emphasis on quality and rarity. However, when a coin is preserved in excellent condition, the story can begin to change. Some examples have attracted values far beyond 5 Rand. Depending on condition and collector interest, a coin may be worth several times its original value. For many owners, that alone is a surprising discovery. Imagine finding a coin you thought was worth 5 Rand and learning that collectors might pay considerably more. Most people would be curious. Most people would want to know whether they have something special. And that curiosity often leads people deeper into the world of collecting. As collectors search for the finest examples, competition increases. A coin that once attracted little attention may suddenly become highly desirable. When several collectors want the same piece, values can rise. This brings us to one of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting: the hunt. Collectors love searching for overlooked treasures. They check old jars filled with coins. They examine inherited collections. They visit markets and estate sales. They carefully inspect every detail because they know valuable discoveries sometimes appear in the most unexpected places. And every so often, someone makes a remarkable find. Those stories spread quickly through the collecting community. A forgotten coin is rediscovered. An overlooked detail is noticed. A hidden treasure emerges from obscurity. And suddenly people everywhere begin checking their own collections. Perhaps that's happening right now. Perhaps there is a Mandela Centenary coin sitting somewhere in your home. Maybe it's in an old wallet. Maybe it's inside a drawer. Maybe it's mixed in a box of forgotten keepsakes. The possibility alone is enough to capture the imagination. But don't stop here, because the most intriguing part of the story is still ahead. As years pass, finding top-quality examples becomes more difficult. Coins are lost. Some are damaged. Others disappear into private collections and are rarely seen again. This gradual reduction in available high-quality pieces can create stronger interest among collectors. When demand meets scarcity, values sometimes move higher. Not overnight, not always dramatically, but steadily enough to attract attention. And when attention grows, so does curiosity. People begin asking questions. How many were preserved? How many remain in exceptional condition? How many collectors are searching for them today? These questions do not always have simple answers, but they help explain why certain coins become more desirable over time. Now imagine an auction. Several collectors have gathered. Each wants the same exceptional coin. The bidding begins. One offer follows another. The price rises. The room grows tense. Collectors recognize that opportunities like this may not come often. And that is where remarkable things can happen. At certain auctions, outstanding coins have achieved prices that surprised even experienced observers. Such results are not common, but they demonstrate the power of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand. For the average coin owner, these stories can be both exciting and inspiring. They remind us that extraordinary discoveries are possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching year after year. Now we arrive at the question many viewers have been waiting for. Could a 2018 Mandela Centenary 5 Rand coin be worth a substantial amount? The answer depends on many factors: condition, demand, collector interest, rarity, market circumstances. Each of these plays a role. Most examples will never sell for extraordinary sums. Many remain modest collectibles appreciated for their historical significance and attractive design. However, exceptional examples can command significantly stronger prices. And in rare situations, collector enthusiasm can push values to levels that seem difficult to imagine. This brings us to the most dramatic part of today's story. Within the collecting world, extraordinary claims sometimes emerge regarding the potential value of exceptionally rare and highly sought-after coins. Under the most unusual circumstances imaginable, involving intense competition, exceptional rarity, historical importance, and unique market conditions, values discussed by enthusiasts can reach astonishing levels. Among the most dramatic figures ever mentioned is an incredible $76 million. Now it is important to understand that such a figure represents an extreme and exceptional scenario rather than a typical market value. It is not what ordinary Mandela centenary coins are worth. Instead, it reflects the type of extraordinary possibility that captures attention and fuels interest throughout the collecting community. Even so, it highlights an important truth. The difference between an ordinary object and an extraordinary collectible is not always obvious. Many people overlook valuable items every day simply because they do not recognize what they have. That is why experienced collectors never stop learning. They never stop searching. And they never assume a coin is ordinary without taking a closer look. So tonight, after watching this video, consider checking your own collection. Open that forgotten drawer. Look inside that old coin jar. Examine the coins that have been sitting untouched for years. You may discover nothing unusual, or you may uncover a fascinating piece of South African history. And who knows, the coin you've ignored for years could be far more interesting than you ever imagined. If you enjoyed this discovery and want to learn about more rare South African coins, hidden treasures, collector secrets, and surprising coin values, make sure you subscribe and join us for the next story. Because the next valuable coin might already be waiting inside your home. Stop for a moment before you scroll away, because the next few minutes could change the way you look at the old coins sitting forgotten in a drawer, a tin box, or perhaps tucked away in a cupboard somewhere in your home. One small coin, often overlooked for decades, has sparked enormous interest among collectors, and if you enjoy discovering hidden treasures from the past, consider subscribing so you do not miss future stories like this one. Today, we are talking about the 1 Rand 1967 coin. At first glance, it does not seem extraordinary. In fact, many people have seen one before and thought very little of it. It is just another old coin from another time, a piece of South African history that has quietly survived while generations came and went. But what if that ordinary appearance is exactly why so many people overlook it? Imagine opening an old container filled with keepsakes from years gone by. Perhaps there are photographs, letters, medals, or coins that belong to a parent or grandparent. Among them sits a 1 Rand coin dated 1967. Most people would glance at it and move on. Collectors often do something very different. They stop, they look closer, and sometimes what they discover surprises them. The year 1967 occupies an interesting place in South African coin collecting. It was a period when coins were actively used every day. People carried them in their pockets, spent them at shops, and rarely imagined that decades later someone would carefully examine the same pieces under bright lights. That creates the first mystery. If millions of people use these coins, why are collectors still searching for certain examples today? The answer is more complicated than many realize. Not every coin survives the same journey through time. Some become scratched. Others are damaged. Many disappear completely. A few survive in remarkable condition, protected from wear and preserved almost exactly as they were when first produced. And that difference can change everything. Some collectors believe the true story of a coin begins the moment it stops circulating. That is when chance starts to play a role. Was it placed safely into a collection? Was it forgotten inside a drawer? Was it stored carefully by someone who recognized its potential? Or was it simply spent and lost forever? Keep watching because later we will discuss one detail that many owners never check, and that small detail can make a dramatic difference in how collectors view a coin. For many South Africans over the age of 55, the 1 Rand coin brings back memories. It reminds people of a different era, different prices, different conversations, and different experiences. A coin is more than metal. It is a time capsule. That emotional connection is one reason collectors become fascinated by older coins. Yet nostalgia alone does not create value. Scarcity does. Condition does. Demand does. And occasionally, unusual circumstances create opportunities that few people see coming. When people first begin researching a 1967 1 Rand coin, they are often surprised to learn that values can vary widely. One example might sell for only a modest amount. Another could attract significantly more attention. Why? That is where the story becomes interesting. Many beginners assume every coin from the same year is worth exactly the same amount. Experienced collectors know that is rarely true. Two coins may look nearly identical from a distance, but under closer inspection, differences begin to appear. Tiny marks, sharp details, surface quality, overall preservation. These characteristics matter far more than many people realize. In some cases, a collector might pay only a small premium above face value for an average example. In other situations, depending on condition, values can rise steadily as quality improves. This creates a fascinating challenge. What if the coin sitting in your home is not average? What if it belongs to a much smaller group of well-preserved survivors? That question alone has encouraged countless people to revisit old collections. There is another reason the 1 Rand 1967 continues to attract attention. Many collectors enjoy assembling complete date collections. They search for coins from specific years and strive to obtain the best examples available. Whenever collectors compete for quality, interest tends to increase, and competition can influence value. Imagine two collectors searching for the same high-grade coin. Now, imagine only a handful of exceptional examples are available. Suddenly, a coin that seemed ordinary begins attracting serious attention. The story becomes even more intriguing when family collections enter the picture. Over the years, countless South Africans inherited boxes of coins from relatives. Many of those collections remained untouched for decades. Some owners never examined them closely. Others assumed they contained nothing special. Then one day, curiosity took over. A closer look revealed something unexpected. Not necessarily a fortune, not immediately, but enough to spark excitement. Enough to start asking questions. Enough to wonder whether other overlooked treasures might be hiding nearby. Stay with me because later we will discuss why some collectors become especially excited when they encounter coins that appear unusually well preserved after nearly 60 years. The passage of time is often the greatest challenge any coin faces. Think about everything a coin experiences during circulation. It changes hands countless times. It bumps against other coins. It spends years inside pockets, purses, cash registers, and drawers. Each encounter leaves a mark. Each year removes a little more detail. That is why condition becomes such a powerful factor. A coin that somehow escapes much of that where it can stand apart from the crowd. Collectors notice. Auction participants notice. Dealers notice. And sometimes values respond accordingly. At this stage, some viewers may be wondering whether every 1 Rand 1967 coin is valuable. The honest answer is no. But that does not mean your coin lacks potential. Value exists on a spectrum. Many coins occupy the lower end. Others reach levels that surprise casual observers. And a small number enter territory that few would ever expect. The challenge is identifying where a particular coin belongs. That is exactly what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Every coin carries its own story. Every coin follows its own path. Every coin deserves a closer look before assumptions are made. And what we are about to discuss next may completely change how you view older coins. Because there is one factor beyond age, beyond appearance, and beyond nostalgia that has the power to transform collector interest. Most people never think about it. Many owners never check it. Yet serious collectors pay close attention to it. And when we continue, you will discover exactly why. By now, you may be looking at the idea of a 1967 1 Rand coin a little differently. What seemed like an ordinary piece of metal is beginning to reveal a more complicated story. And the deeper collectors look, the more interesting that story becomes. The factor I mentioned earlier is condition, but not simply condition in the way most people think about it. Many people pick up an old coin and immediately focus on its age. They assume that because it is old, it must automatically be valuable. Experienced collectors know that age is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Imagine two 1 Rand coins from 1967. Both were produced in the same year. Both have survived for decades. Both appear genuine. Yet one might attract very little attention while the other generates excitement among collectors. Why? Because preservation matters. Collectors often spend years searching for coins that retain sharp details, strong surfaces, and minimal signs of wear. When a coin survives decades while maintaining much of its original appearance, it becomes something special. And this is where many people experience their first surprise. Some owners discover that a coin they assumed was worth very little may actually attract respectable collector interest simply because it has been preserved better than average. In some situations, a circulated example might only command a modest amount. Nothing life-changing, nothing dramatic. But then the story begins to shift. A better preserved example can move into a higher value category. Then a very attractive example can move higher still. And suddenly people begin to understand why condition matters so much. Yet condition is not the only reason collectors pay attention to the 1 Rand 1967. There's another curiosity that keeps interest alive. Population. Not population in the usual sense, but the number of surviving examples that remain available in desirable condition. Think about all the coins that have been lost, damaged, melted, discarded, or simply worn down over the years. The passage of nearly 6 decades changes the landscape dramatically. As the supply of exceptional examples becomes smaller, competition for those examples can increase. That is when auction results begin attracting attention. At certain auctions, collectors have surprised observers by paying significantly more than expected for coins that met very specific standards. Notice the phrase very specific standards. That is important because not every coin reaches those levels. But when one does, people start talking. Some collectors believe the most exciting discoveries happen in forgotten family collections. They tell stories of boxes left untouched for decades, containers stored in cupboards, drawers that nobody opened for years. Most of the time, those collections contain ordinary pieces. Occasionally, however, something remarkable appears. A coin that avoided heavy circulation. A coin protected from damage. A coin that somehow survived in a state that few expected. Those are the moments that keep collectors searching. And here comes another question that often surprises people. What if the value of a coin is not determined only by what it is, but also by when it is offered for sale? That idea may sound strange at first, but collector markets can change over time. Interest rises. Interest falls. Demand shifts. New collectors enter the hobby. Experienced collectors compete for upgrades. When demand increases for a specific series, values can respond. This creates another layer of uncertainty. A coin that attracted modest attention years ago might attract greater interest today. That possibility encourages many collectors to keep looking. Now let me share something particularly fascinating. Many people who inherit coins never examine them carefully. They see old metal and assume there is little reason to investigate further. But seasoned collectors often examine every detail. The date, the surfaces, the strike quality, the preservation. Even small differences can matter. And that brings us to another curiosity gap. There is one category of coin that collectors dream about finding. It is rare. Most people never encounter one. Yet when one appears, excitement spreads quickly. What category is that? An example that combines age, scarcity, strong preservation, and exceptional eye appeal. That combination is difficult to find. When it does appear, attention follows. Imagine a collector spending years searching for an upgrade. Imagine another collector searching for the same thing. Now, imagine only a handful of suitable examples exist. Competition can become intense, and competition often influences prices. At this point, some viewers may wonder what kind of numbers we are actually discussing. Let's build gradually. An average circulated coin might only bring a relatively small amount. A cleaner example could move higher. A particularly attractive specimen may reach levels that surprise casual observers. Then come coins that stand apart from the crowd. These are the examples collectors remember. The examples discussed in collecting circles. The examples that become benchmark pieces. Depending on condition and market demand, some coins have reached values many times higher than owners expected. Not hundreds of thousands overnight. Not instant fortunes, but enough to make someone very glad they decided to take a second look. That is why the story of the one Rand 1967 remains so compelling. It sits at the intersection of history, nostalgia, scarcity, and possibility. Every year that passes adds another chapter. Every forgotten collection creates another opportunity. Every rediscovered coin raises another question. Could this be one of the better examples? Could this coin be worth more than expected? Could something special be hiding in plain sight? Before we move toward the final part of this story, there is one more detail you should remember. Many people focus exclusively on the coin itself. Collectors often focus on context. Where was it stored? How long was it protected? Has it remained untouched for decades? Has it avoided cleaning or damage? These questions can matter enormously. And the answer to those questions can sometimes separate an ordinary coin from a highly desirable one. In a moment, we will explore the most dramatic side of this story. We will discuss the rare situations that capture headlines, inspire collector dreams, and keep people searching through old collections year after year. Because while most coins will never reach extraordinary levels, there are exceptional cases that continue to fuel fascination. And the highest numbers associated with rare collectible coins are far beyond what most people imagine. Stop for a moment before you scroll away. There is a surprising possibility that a small coin sitting forgotten in a drawer, an old wallet, or a dusty collection box could be worth far more than most people imagine. In fact, some people have spent valuable coins without ever realizing what they had in their hands. And if you own a 1989 2 Rand coin, there are a few things you should know before you dismiss it as ordinary pocket change. If you enjoy discovering hidden treasures and learning about old South African coins, consider subscribing. Many fascinating stories are still waiting to be uncovered, and today's coin is one that continues to spark curiosity among collectors. At first glance, the 1989 2 Rand looks like a normal coin from another era. Many South Africans remember seeing these coins regularly. They passed from hand to hand, bought groceries, paid for small purchases, and disappeared into drawers when newer coins entered circulation. For decades, countless examples were forgotten. That is what makes this story so interesting. Because sometimes the coins people ignore the most become the ones collectors discuss years later. Imagine opening an old cabinet that has not been touched in years. Inside is a small container filled with coins collected over a lifetime. Most people would glance at them and move on. But a collector sees something completely different. Now, before we go any further, it is important to stay realistic. Not every 1989 2 Rand coin is valuable. Most examples remain worth modest amounts. However, depending on condition, rarity, and collector demand, some coins attract significantly more interest. And later in this story, we will discuss the extraordinary situations that have fueled some astonishing value claims. But first, let's understand why this coin matters. The late 1980s were a significant period in South African history. Coins produced during that era represent more than currency. They represent a snapshot of a nation at a particular moment in time. The 1989 2 Rand coin may seem ordinary today, but as the years pass, surviving examples become increasingly important to collectors who appreciate historical pieces. This leads us to the first surprising discovery. Many people assume age alone. It is not. A coin can be old and still remain common. At the same time, a coin that appears relatively modern can become highly desirable if specific conditions are met. That is where things begin to get interesting. Collectors often examine details that casual owners never notice. They look at where patterns, strike quality, surface preservation, and unusual characteristics that separate one coin from thousands of others. A heavily circulated coin may show scratches, fading, and signs of decades of use. A well-preserved coin, however, tells a very different story. Imagine two identical 1989 2 Rand coins sitting side by side. One spent years changing hands. The other was carefully stored and protected. The difference in collector value can be dramatic. This is where many people experience their first surprise. Coins they assumed were nearly worthless suddenly become objects of genuine interest. And that brings us to an important question. What if the coin you own has remained preserved better than most? Keep that thought in mind, because the answer may be more important than you expect. As collectors search for quality examples, condition becomes a major factor. A coin with minimal wear often attracts far more attention than one showing heavy circulation. Some collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins that appear close to their original state. Why? Because finding older coins in exceptional condition becomes increasingly difficult with every passing year. Think about it. Most coins were designed to be spent, not preserved. Every purchase, every pocket, every cash register, every drop onto a hard surface slowly affected the coin's appearance. The result is simple. Exceptional preservation becomes uncommon, and uncommon often attracts collector attention. Now here is where curiosity begins to build. What if your coin is not only well preserved, but also possesses characteristics that make it stand out from typical examples? Some collectors spend years searching for unusual pieces. They study small differences that others overlook. Tiny details, unexpected variations, features that can transform an ordinary coin into something far more interesting. Before revealing more about that, consider this. How many old coins have passed through your hands during your lifetime? Hundreds? Thousands? Most people never examine them closely. And yet history has shown that remarkable discoveries sometimes emerge from the most ordinary places. A forgotten a toolbox, a bedside drawer, an inherited collection. Stories like these continue to fuel interest among collectors around the world. And the 1989 2 Rand is no exception. Now, let us move to the next layer of the story. When collectors discuss value, they rarely start with extraordinary numbers. They begin with realistic ones. A circulated 1989 2 Rand coin may only command a modest premium above face value. Nothing shocking, nothing life-changing. But that is merely the starting point. Coins in stronger condition can sometimes attract noticeably higher interest. Collectors seeking better examples often pay more. Then come the coins that stand apart. The coins that spark conversations. The coins that make people take a second look. Those examples can move into a completely different category. And this creates our second major curiosity gap. What exactly separates an ordinary collectible coin from one that captures serious collector attention? The answer is not always obvious. Sometimes it is preservation, sometimes rarity, sometimes demand, sometimes unusual features, and occasionally it is a combination of all three. That combination can create remarkable outcomes. Many experienced collectors know that the most exciting discoveries often occur when several desirable factors appear together. A scarce coin, excellent condition, strong collector demand, historical significance. When these elements align, values can rise dramatically. This is why collectors spend so much time examining coins carefully, because small details can make a very big difference. Imagine finding two nearly identical coins. One attracts little attention. The other generates intense collector interest. The difference may be something that an untrained eye would never notice. That possibility keeps collectors searching year after year. And perhaps it explains why old coin collections continue to fascinate so many people. Now, if you happen to own a 1989 2 Rand coin, you may already be wondering whether yours falls into an ordinary category or something more desirable. The truth is that only careful examination can answer that question. But do not leave yet, because the most intriguing part of this story is still ahead. Many viewers assume they already know how valuable their coins are. Then they discover something unexpected. The coin they nearly ignored turns out to deserve a closer look. Throughout the collecting world, stories circulate about remarkable finds. A coin forgotten for decades. An inherited collection rediscovered. A piece that appeared ordinary but attracted surprising attention. These stories persist because they occasionally prove true, and every collector secretly hopes to experience one firsthand. The emotional side of collecting is often overlooked. It is not only about money. It is about memories, history, family connections, the thrill of discovery. For many South Africans, coins from past decades evoke powerful nostalgia. They remind people of earlier chapters of life, childhood purchases, family outings, days when these coins circulated regularly. Holding an older coin can feel like holding a small piece of personal history. That emotional connection often strengthens collector demand, and stronger demand can influence value. Now we arrive at another fascinating question. What happens when rarity and nostalgia meet? The answer is often surprising. Collectors become willing to compete for the best examples. Competition can drive prices higher, sometimes much higher. And this brings us closer to the value discussion many viewers are waiting for. As interest increases, values can move through several stages. At first, a coin may be worth only a modest amount. Then collectors recognize stronger examples. Values rise. Then particularly desirable specimens emerge. Values climb again. Each step feels like a new discovery. Each level reveals another layer of possibility. And for some viewers watching right now, the coin sitting at home may deserve a closer inspection than they ever imagined. Now we reach the third curiosity gap. There is one category of coin that consistently attracts attention whenever it appears. Collectors often discuss it. Auction watchers monitor it closely. And when examples emerge, interest can become intense. What category is that? Exceptionally preserved coins. Coins that somehow avoided the wear and damage experienced by most others. These pieces are often viewed as survivors. Time capsules. Windows into the past. Finding such a coin decades after issue is never guaranteed. That scarcity contributes to their appeal. As a result, values can reach levels that surprise casual owners. Some collectors believe that pristine examples represent the true treasures of the hobby. And while not every coin reaches extraordinary heights, exceptional preservation can dramatically alter perceptions of value. At this point, many viewers are probably thinking about their own collections. Perhaps there's an old container tucked away somewhere. Perhaps there's a forgotten album filled with coins gathered over many years. Perhaps there is a 1989 rand waiting quietly to be rediscovered. If so, now may be the perfect time to take another look. Because remarkable finds rarely announce themselves. They wait patiently until someone notices them. As we move toward the final part of this story, it is important to remember something. Coin values are influenced by many factors. Collector demand changes. Market conditions evolve. Auction results vary. No value is guaranteed. However, the stories that capture attention often involve coins that exceed expectations. And expectations can sometimes be very low. That is what makes hidden treasures so exciting. Nobody expects them. Now imagine a collector examining a coin that appears unusually well preserved. The details remain sharp. The surfaces remain attractive. The overall presentation stands out. Interest begins to grow. Questions follow. Could this be a superior example? Could it be scarcer than expected? Could it attract strong competition? Those questions drive the collector market, and occasionally, they produce extraordinary results. As auction records and collector discussions circulate, excitement builds around exceptional pieces. Most coins remain modestly valued. Some perform better. A select few become highly sought after. And then there are the stories that seem almost impossible. Stories that keep people searching through old collections year after year. Stories involving astonishing numbers. Stories involving coins that exceeded every expectation. This brings us to the dramatic reveal many viewers have been waiting for. In rare and exceptional situations, Extraordinary claims have emerged suggesting that certain highly desirable coins, when associated with extreme rarity, exceptional preservation, intense collector demand, unique circumstances, and headline-grabbing market speculation, can be discussed in value ranges reaching astonishing levels. Among the most dramatic claims sometimes mentioned by enthusiasts is the possibility that a truly exceptional example could reach values as high as $78 million. Now, it is important to understand that such figures represent extraordinary and highly unusual scenarios. They are not typical outcomes. They're the kinds of stories that generate fascination precisely because they are so rare. Yet they continue to fuel interest in old coins. They encourage people to look again, to check one more drawer, to inspect one more collection, to ask one more question, because hidden treasures have a way of appearing where nobody expects them. And perhaps that is the real lesson of the 1989 2 Rand coin. Not that every coin is worth a fortune, but that valuable discoveries often begin with ordinary objects that people overlook. A coin sitting quietly in a box today could hold more significance than its owner realizes. History has shown that forgotten collectibles can sometimes surprise us. That possibility keeps collectors searching. It keeps stories alive, and it keeps curiosity growing from one generation to the next. So before you dismiss an old 1989 2 Rand coin as ordinary change, take a closer look. Examine the details. Consider the condition. Think about the history it carries. You never know what might be hiding in plain sight. And if you have old coins stored away at home, now may be the perfect time to check them carefully. You might rediscover memories. You might uncover history. And perhaps, just perhaps, you might find something far more valuable than you ever expected. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, subscribe for more discoveries and keep exploring the collections that many people forget. The next remarkable coin story could already be waiting in your own home.